You have to truly believe in the magic.
What's up, Magic fans? Welcome to Penny for Your Thoughts, Orlando Magic UK's weekly podcast. Today is Friday, the 24th of February, and on today's episode, we're going to be looking back at NBA All-Star Weekend in Utah this last weekend, some roster moves that the Magic made in the last few days, and we'll be recapping Orlando's first game back against the Detroit Pistons. So I'm joined, as usual, by Paul, Gary, and Mikey. So I'm going to come through you guys. Obviously, Shrove Tuesday. I want to know what you had in your pancakes. Okay, Gary.
Oh, what a way to start. So I went to the God's country, Sunderland. I went to a place called YOLO, and I ordered a pancake stack, and it was of toffee, was it salted caramel, a wafer, and some whipped cream and a bit of chocolate sauce on top as well in a massive box. It was huge. It was disgustingly, like, I felt like a walking E number when I finished eating it. But I did eat it. That is the way, Maggie. But I did eat it all. I laid the smack down on it. Good man. Cheap
And
gains.
Fresh from having toast and a cream egg for his tea. Mr. Mikey Clark, how are we, mate?
Hey, I'm good. I can't believe I didn't have pancakes on Pancake Day. I know.
You forgot?
Yeah.
Oh, mate. Becky's going to have to cook some up this weekend for you, mate.
And I had my child's tea tonight. Do you know what? The bloke I work with, he was taking the mick at me the other week because I turned up to work and on my break, he's like, "What are you drinking there?" I was like, "Oh, it's orange squash." He's like, "What are you, 10?" I was like, "No, drink orange squash all the time." And then I'm tucking into my Rice Krispie square. So, yeah, just keeping my tradition of being a child.
Oh, good man.
Yeah, no pancakes, mate, unfortunately.
No. And how are we in Mansfield, Paul? You good?
Well, mate, very, very, very well. Yes, thank you very much. And as to Pancake Day, it was a bit of Trooper beer mixed into the pancake mix, along with some bacon, and then it was going to be, as you notice the words here, a chocolate topping with oranges or strawberries or something like that. However, truth be told, me and the missus looked at one and went, "I can't be bothered to do that," so we went to McDonald's instead. So I had a Big Mac. We've got all the stuff in. We're having that tomorrow.
Good stuff.
What about you, G?
Just been a Nutella, mate. Just the one, because obviously, the diabetes and stuff. Just a bit of Nutella. So,
But watch your figure, haven't you?
I have, mate. I have.
I made it for you, G. Don't worry.
Gee, seriously, mate, you have to try the pancakes made with half beer and then some bacon and maple syrup on it.
Send me the recipe later, mate.
All right, dude.
Sizzling? Was it sizzling bacon?
Always sizzling, mate.
Tasty as well.
Streaky, crispy.
Tasty.
Good stuff. Right, so let's get on with things. Magic news since we last recorded. So as of today, the Magic are 25-35, sitting in 13th place in the Eastern Conference with 22 games remaining. The Magic are 4 games back of the Toronto Raptors and Washington Wizards, who are in 9th and 10th, respectively. A game and a half behind the Chicago Bulls, who are in 11th. And only half a game back of the Indiana Pacers. And we will get an opportunity to leapfrog them with a win on Saturday night against the Pacers. On Tuesday, the Magic converted Admiral Schofield's 2-way contract to a standard deal through the 2023-24 season. I think that is a team option on the next year's contract. So it gives us a bit of flexibility and continuity. The Magic then waived guard RJ Hampton a few hours later, bringing his stint in Orlando to an end. News broke that he would be signing with the Detroit Pistons some hours later, and we did see that he was sat behind the Pistons bench last night. It's a bit of a shame, really. Didn't work out with RJ. but kind of inevitable given we declined his team option. What do you think went wrong, Paul? And is this a case of an asset lost?
First of all, mate, just coming back to Admiral, just proves what dedication and hard work can achieve. That man so deserves that contract. I'm delighted for him. Really pleased to see that he got that. He gives it his all every game. As to RJ, for me, I suppose you could argue that there's been a bit of mishandling in respect of the Magic by letting him go. I'll come to that in a moment, though. However, for me, RJ fits what a developing rebuild team should do. We picked up a guy to take a look at him. Does he work for us? If the answer's no, then move on from him and let him have an opportunity elsewhere. So we got RJ as part of the Aaron Gordon trade. Aaron Gordon, let's be fair, Aaron Gordon wasn't going to be staying with us. So the return of Gary Harris, a first round pick, which we'll accept may not be a great pick, even if it actually ultimately arrives with us. And we got to take a look at a young guy as well in RJ. I think that was a decent return. Aaron Gordon wasn't fitting with what we were doing at the time. He needed a new start. So for me, we didn't lose a trade in that we had different needs from it at that point. RJ, when he came, he showed ability. He played with passion and commitment. He was always ready at the end of the bench when his number was called, and he came out and gave it his all. Downside for RJ for me was he played at 1,000,000 miles an hour. And there were certainly issues around production. He was very much a score-first guard. There wasn't the deal of setting others up. We saw him, for me, again, I've read somebody saying that we didn't play him often enough. I think he got plenty of opportunities in the team, particularly in the first season under the coach, mostly coming about through injuries. He has to go to Summer League, and let's be fair, he didn't really advance his case with his play there. He went to Lakeland. He asked to play in Lakeland. Fair play to the man. I'll give him a huge amount of credit for that, because that showed a dedication of wanting to be ready, keeping the minutes up, and showing his team what he can do. But the upshot is he kept coming up short for us. Was it 24 starts he's had? I think I've read. But his production wasn't huge. He slid down the bench. He was only seeing minutes as injury cover ultimately, or as in trash time at the end of a game. He's in moving RJ to Detroit. They're giving him this. I think they've done well as a front office. They're giving him the same opportunity as he had with us, 20 odd games to show an ability, and if he can have an impact as a backup guard there, which he's likely to get an opportunity with very early on. I hope the move works for him personally. I think he's a great guy. I wish him well. But as to is he a asset loss? You can argue that he was there. It leaves us short on cover at the guard position, with our three guards having had injury issues. We all know that. But is he going to be, ultimately, is he the guy who, is he one of those guys who's going to push the needle to be in a winning, contending team? And for me, the answer is no. At which point, with where we are in the development, I think we've done right by him, allowing him the opportunity to go elsewhere, get a fresh start, and see if that fit is better. And for me, that's the flip side of the argument with people saying that the front office haven't managed him well. I think ultimately they've done right by him and given him the opportunity elsewhere. And good luck to the man.
Yeah, I definitely echo wishing him well. Obviously, he was a first round pick, but we've also signed the first round pick that got waived by the Pacers in Bitars. I can't even say his name. Bitars, or whatever he's called. That's the one.
Lady Gaga.
So, it swings and roundabouts, isn't it, really? And it probably fits our a team positionally a lot better, given the fact that, Mo Bamba was moved on. So, no, go on, Mikey.
What is it?
I think what this highlights more than anything, I don't think it's necessarily a slight on RJ. I think we're past the point of having to worry about developing players like this. We already got a core that we're moving forwards with. Everybody else has got to fit and catch up with everybody else now. Otherwise, they're getting shipped out and they're going to get replaced by somebody that's going to help move the needle more. And I think RJ's still at that point where he's still got a lot of developing to do, and he's obviously going to get more of an opportunity in Detroit than he is with us, because there's players that are ready to play, like Admiral, like Kevon Harris, who've both been on two-way contracts, that are ready to step in and make a difference now. And RJ, you weren't quite sure what you were going to get on a night-to-night basis. So good luck to the kid at the end of the day.
Yeah. So as it stands now, the Magic have some open roster spots given these transactions this week. We've got one two-way contract with Kevon Harris occupying the other one, and an open roster spot also on the team for just a normal signing. Mikey, then, what would you like to see the Magic do with the open spots? Any players you'd like to give an opportunity or target?
I was actually a little disappointed Kevon Harris didn't get given that full contract, but hopefully he'll still come back next year. But I hadn't really looked at who's available, but one idea I just thought of before we started recording was, if he gets cut by Philadelphia, go and stick Mac McClung on the two-way contract. Wouldn't be a bad addition. I think somebody like that who I don't know, who needs an opportunity, because we haven't got any more roster spots available. I think it's going to be a flyer for the rest of the season. I don't know. I don't know who's available, but Mac McClung would be one name I would be interested in bringing in, but we'll see. They might not even use it at this stage.
No, that's true. Obviously, there might be somebody from Lakeland. That's another option to bring through the ranks, either with the two-way or the full roster spot, and having that flexibility as the season winds down, just to see what we need. Might be a good thing to have.
Have you guys got anybody in mind?
Not really, if I'm honest.
Mate, for me, I'm quite happy to see the roster set as it is until the end of the season, and let's see what happens in the summer. I wrote that article this week on the website, looking forward about things, and you realise as you start looking into it how much the team is set up for this summer. That's where the focus is. Anything else this season is kind of a distraction, really, for me. Move on. Move it. When I say move on, I don't mean as in move the pod. I'm on board with it. I mean as in it's time for us to move on to that next level, and focus on what we have and where we are ready for the summer. For me, I'm not too worried about filling the spot at the moment.
Here's a thought. Devin Kennedy. He's obviously playing with the South Bay Lakers.
Yeah.
I'm not sure how that works, though, because they'd have to trade for him back, wouldn't they?
If they wanted him to play for Lakeland, but I think the Magic can potentially sign him to a end the season contract, I believe.
I'm not sure how that works. I think it's only if it's a two-way deal, I think he has to be with Lakeland, which would mean I might be wrong, but we have got a full contract available also. Have we?
Yeah.
I thought we've got a 50-man roster. I thought Batadze finished that last roster sort. Let's go.
No, because we lost Terrence Ross and we lost Mo Bamba, didn't we? And then we lost RJ Hampton. So we lost 3, and then we added
with RJ getting
Schofield and Batadze.
Yeah. Here's a name. I'm not saying we should sign him at all, because I think actually we should just stick with what we have and develop the youth. But in light of the All-Star weekend and where there's been stuff about we lack a veteran presence, depending on where his ego is for the role he'd play, what about Carmelo Anthony?
knew you were going to say that. It was either going to be him or Dwight Howard.
I was going with Carmelo when I looked at similarities with Paolo mentor and what he could bring to the team in terms of mentoring, particularly Paolo and Franz. I looked at that photograph and I was like, could that be just a little hint if he doesn't sign with someone like the Suns that's been talked about? I heard they're going down the Derrick Rose route, is what the latest talk was. Would Carmelo was just if he's ready just to sit there and not really be active, but be there almost as just an old head, would Carmelo Anthony be worth a shot?
A bit like Vince Carter did when he was in Atlanta in his last couple of years.
Yeah. Just be there. Just be there.
Yeah. All right. Moving on. Just touched upon NBA All-Star Weekend there, Gary, with the photo that Paolo had with Carmelo and LeBron, wasn't it? Was it Carmelo and LeBron? KD. That was it. KD, that was it. NBA All-Star Weekend took place over the weekend with Paolo Banchero representing the Magic on All-Star Saturday night in the Skills Challenge. He represented the Rooks, who finished in second place behind Team Jazz, whilst the Antetokounmpos finished in last place. That did include Drew Holiday being an honorary Antetokounmpo brother for the evening. Franz and Paolo also participated in the Rising Stars Challenge with Paolo's team Pau, Gasol, defeating Franz, who was on Team Deron. Team Pau went on to win the final against Team Jason by a score of 25-20. For me, the Skills Challenge wasn't the best event. There was way too much going on. People weren't even sure what they were doing. But Gary, what were your thoughts on how Paolo and Franz did?
I'll start off with just my thoughts on All-Star Weekend. I don't like it. I think the format overall isn't for me. First of all, just jumping on the back of what you said there as well, G, the Antetokounmpo team performance was just make the eyes bleed type watch. It was awful. It was really bad. So that was that. It was nice to watch Paolo in the Skills Challenge. And overall as well, just hearing some of the commentary that was put around Banchero saying about him being comparable in size to LeBron. That was said during the Skills Challenge. And they also were singing the praises of him being young and being the guy who could carry Orlando as being a team to watch in the next 2 years. They were basically saying he's a difference maker. And it was nice to see him and Ivy, who we obviously got to look at again last night, the way they just glided the floor naturally when you compared that against the Antetokounmpo team, showed you the talent those two have got as basketball players. It was just nice to see how they handle the ball and how graceful they are. The game itself, I've got to say Franz was pretty underwhelming. I was quite worried about an Audi performance from Franz, where it was going to be like 4 zeros on the trot in the stats. I always get worried when I see an Audi performance coming up. So there wasn't much to see. Paolo, a lot more eye-catching. He got a 9 and 5 in his first game. And I really thought he set the tone with the nice move he had straight away on Franz in the game, early in the game, where it was like magic on magic and he hit like the fadeaway. It was nice as well to see Alvarado playing, and if it wasn't going to be any of the Magic guys getting the MVP, he's a guy who I'm quite happy to see take those honours, given where he's came from and how he plays the game. He's fantastic. So if nothing else, it was nice to see, get a little hint of the future of Paolo with a trophy in his hand at the end. Hopefully in 3 or 4 years' time, we can see that. But yeah, I think for me, I've always got that bias with the way the current format is for the All-Star Weekend, where I'm just kind of like, I'll watch the Magic guys, but overall, the Skills Challenge wasn't great. I wish Franz could have shown a little bit more, but to be honest, as long as we see that in the competitive games that matter, not bothered really.
Yeah, no, fair enough. Now, let's get into the main event itself. So I want to get all of your opinions on this. So the main game took place on Sunday night with Team Giannis winning 184-175 against Team LeBron, with Boston Celtics star Jason Tatum scoring a record-breaking 55 points on his way to winning the MVP honours. Now, it's reported that this was the least watched All-Star game in a very, very long time, getting even less viewers than the NFL's Pro Bowl game, which, I know Mikey and I, follow the NFL, but I can never be bothered with the Pro Bowl, if I'm being perfectly honest with you. And there was one photo in particular that I sent the guys in our little WhatsApp group with basically Jaylen Brown being guarded by Jason Tatum, and you can see the 8 others on the floor literally standing around and just watching them go one-on-one. So for me, it's become a bit of a joke. And I know it's part of the reason. I know Paul's very, very strongly opinionated about this, that why he doesn't watch it. So I want to ask you, are there any suggestions that you have to make the event better?
Right.
Who wants to start?
That picture you sent us sums up the All-Star game for me, and it's why I'm not interested in watching it. The Stars don't want to play. They don't want to play defense. They don't want to, and I get this. Don't get me wrong. I understand that it's a fun event. That they don't want to get injured out. The season is far more important. However, look at the games, those 2-3 games that the Rising Stars played. They were still playing defense. They were competitive. Nobody was going out to nail somebody, but the games were competitive. And there's got to be some effort played. It's like, if Rudy Gobert gets picked, his game is defense, but nobody wants. I appreciate this, that it's far more entertaining to see a dunk and a 3 made from half court, but they're only being made because there's no defense played. And I want to see a game, actually. If we're going to have a game, I want to see a game played with a competitive spirit. And until you bring that back, I don't see as it being an entertaining event to watch. And I don't know what is going to actually change to make that happen. I don't know. I honestly don't know what the suggestion would be. Because the guys, let's be fair, the Stars are there. It's not a case that the Stars don't take part, but they don't want to get injured, and I appreciate that. And they want to have a break and recuperate the bodies. And load management has become more and more important these days, whereas it wasn't such a factor. Well, it wasn't a factor when the All-Star game was a super watchable event. And I don't know how you're ever going to turn the clock back to that.
Yeah. I mean, growing up, I think my first All-Star game was 1998, and it was the game Jordan and Kobe were going back and forth at each other. A couple of years later, I think there was one in Washington, and it was Stephon Marbury and somebody, I think it might have been Kobe again, going back and forth. And, you had stars on the court, Mutombo trying to close down Bryant, and it was literally back and forth, and it was absolutely brilliant knowing that they were the best players. But from reading at what some of the sort of journalists have said about this last weekend is the players have been asked to do everything else, all this media availability, etc. So they're absolutely knackered from, what's supposed to be a break, having to fulfill all these, endorsements and these meetings and these, get-togethers before then playing on the Sunday. But I think what they should do is keep it East and West and literally make them be as competitive as possible in that the East or the West team, whoever wins, that conference gets the home court for the NBA Finals, as opposed to going on best records.
I disagree.
But that's one way to make it competitive.
Over an exhibition game that nobody really cares about, I think that's a lot to put on the line for that. I don't know. I had the chance to listen. I don't know if you listened to The Old Man and the Three with JJ Redick this week, and he was basically saying, he broke down all the things that the players have to do during an NBA All-Star weekend, and he was saying about even little things like most players warm up sort of 45 to 50 minutes. They'll start their shoot around before the game. Well, they're doing it 2 hours before the All-Star game. And it's so hard. There's basically no chance for the players to get into any game rhythm going into the All-Star game. And then this year, you had they decided to do the draft, didn't they? Right before the game. Then they cut it and had a pre-game concert with Post Malone that none of the crowd looked like they were even bothered about. And then they got into the game. I agree, G. I think they just need to simplify All-Star Weekend instead of trying to make it better and better. At the end of the day, it's an exhibition game. There's more interest goes into which players are going to be the All-Stars than actually when you get to the game. We've had the Elam ending for the last couple of years, and that worked to begin with, but at the end of the day, it's more of a celebration about the best players in the league. I agree. Go back to East and West. I don't think it needs to be any more complicated than that. I mean, I've listened to like Zach Lowe and a few people debating about how they can make it more competitive, and do they reward players by giving them, I don't know, $1 million for being voted an All-Star and playing in the All-Star game. Well, the problem with that is you've then got, where's that money coming from? How do you generate that money? But, I mean, let's be honest, right? The top 40, there's 40 players in the NBA this year that are all earning north of 30 million. And then you've got players like Steph Curry's earning 48 million. Highest paid player in the league. Do you really think he's really going to care that much about an extra $1 million in his pocket? Or the fact that it's going to earn a little amount of money for a charity that if they win the first quarter? I just don't think there's anything that's going to change. And I don't think it will change because, like you said, G, about like all those great memories of watching All-Star games as we were growing up watching I remember watching T-Mac dunk it off the backboard over Dirk. All those sorts of things. But I think because of social media, right, like those real rivalries between players has gone out the window. A lot of these players are all friends off the court and they hang out in the summer and they scrimmage together and they practice together and they're all trying to help each other get better. MJ wasn't doing that. MJ was out to kill people. He wanted to win, but then that was in his DNA, and you didn't have social media where players could go back at one another or show each other love for games that they've had and stuff like that. I just don't think you're ever going to be able to recoup that All-Star game we used to really remember and really enjoy. So I agree. Go back to the way it used to be. I also think the highlight of the weekend was the 3-point contest, Dame time, and watching Matt McClung win the dunk contest. And I think with the skills competition, it was just too complicated. It is more complicated than it needed to be. At the end of the day, I think the players wanted a break, and we heard that from Wendell last night. It was nice just to have a week off that they could recuperate, ready to go for the last quarter of the season. So, yeah, stop overcomplicating it and get it back to the way it used to be.
Anything to add, Gar?
Yeah, like for me, the All-Star game's just fallen off the map, really. And I think when you were talking about the Marbury one, when it was kind of like the little Eastern Conference team that won with Marbury and Iverson in the backcourt, I think that then Vince Carter, I believe, was on the court at the same time for the East. Yeah. There was a feeling about the East having a chip on their shoulder because the West was seen as the superior conference when you looked at what they could field with, you know, Kobe, Shaq, Tim Duncan, etc. Were all in that conference. So I think there was a chip on the shoulder and a rivalry then. But as Mikey was just saying there, social media, the 24/7 hype train, etc., probably doesn't help for this. I would definitely go back to the East versus West. I would definitely go back to the rookie versus sophomore game as well. I think that should return. If you weren't going to do an East versus West, I would go USA versus the world as a format, because I think that could be quite interesting. I obviously think the skills challenge should be a one-player event. I don't think it should be a team event. I think it should just be 5 players or 6 players, and you do it down from there. And in terms of making it mean something, I do think East versus West would mean more than I've been drafted by LeBron or Giannis. Like, I don't care. Like that's the top and bottom of it. I don't care who LeBron or Giannis pick, and it says it all when Jokic was like so far down the list to be drafted in that. Yet he's arguably the MVP. Like that shows that format up. And I think when you look at the East versus the West, there is a traditional rivalry there. If you straight away you could look at it and go, well, there's people who would say Jokic is the best center in the game. There's people who could make the case for Joel Embiid. Well, they're both starting. That's your starting centers for the game. So straight away you've got that. Prior to the trade, you're going to have LeBron and KD on different teams. You're going to have Giannis on one team, and you're going to have Luka on the other. It will be really balanced as a game right now. It's not like where the East versus the West was a no contest. This would be actually quite balanced if they went back to that. The only other option would be when they play it. And I think for me, you've got to keep it in February because it goes in line roughly with the trade deadline. But the only other thing would be is at the season opener, where you base it off the previous whole season performance. And then you ditch the rookie and sophomore game almost, because it's just going to be then who's drafted, But for me, I think you just go East versus West and go simple and get back to some normalcy, please.
Yeah. I'd add to that, get rid of the All-Star jerseys, let the teams wear, like they did in 1998, East wears white, and then West wears colours or whatever, and they represent their team, not this, Team LeBron nonsense. Anyway,
unless G, it was those 6 San Antonio jerseys that year when they were in the teal.
96,
Cactus ones, they were great.
They were good. Right, so weekly recap time. So since our previous episode, when was it? Last week. On Thursday, the Magic played the Detroit Pistons and won by a score of 108-106 on a walk-off tip by Wendell Carter Jr. See a big smile on Mikey's face now. There we go. And that was after a Paolo Banchero missed layup after Detroit had tied it up with a 3 with some 8 seconds to go. It wasn't a pretty game. First game back, obviously, after All-Star break. The Magic had 7 players in double figures, with Franz Wagner leading the way with 21 points. Markel Fultz and Wendell each also had 14, and Wendell also chipped in with a season-high 14 rebounds. So, guys, what did you make of the performance? Was it ever in doubt?
I'll let somebody else go first, because I'm about to shoot my mouth off at you saying he was ever in doubt, because we were 2-0 down against him, mate. you and this, we were playing a bunch of bums.
I don't rate the Pistons that much, to be honest with you. I really don't.
Honestly.
Yeah. Go on, Paul.
But I thought, in watching the game, listening to the commentary, David and Jeff were all there saying about what an entertaining game. I was really bored with the first half. Didn't engage me much at all. Second half, I thought was fantastic. And it really picked up that with once we went on that 15-point run to create a good lead, they came back, and we then started seeing these lead changes and the ties. I think it was an excellent game at that point. Performance-wise from the Magic, some real positives. We're going against the Pistons, who were number one for free throws made and attempted. We didn't. I mean, the officials let the game play. I was pleased to see they weren't just calling anything ticky-tacky, but the Magic did a good job of not overly allowing the Pistons to get to the line. We did pretty well on the glass, considering that Detroit were absolutely crashing the glass against teams. Top 10 in second chance points so far this season. So we did well. We had some real positives in that game. The thing I still want to see, I know I might be on my own on this one, but I do want to see the team stop getting so many technical fouls. In a close game, by not keeping control of your emotions, we are allowing teams the opportunity. Those 2 points could easily have been telling in the game. For two, I think the one on Franz was a bit soft. I mean, he didn't seem to swear. He just seemed to ask, how was that a foul?
They were both soft, Paul. They were BS, mate, those technical fouls. I know G's normally a rant about those, but I'm sorry, these weren't technical fouls. Neither player was in the referee's face shouting off. Jalen walked off in frustration and got a technical foul. And Franz was basically asking the question why was that a foul? And the referee just
they have to learn.
I agree.
They have to learn, because we had two in a game where it was a 2-point game.
Yeah.
And had it been that they decided that was a goaltend on the final one, it would have seen us go to overtime when it was a game that we really easily could have won. I genuinely thought it was a good performance. I was really happy with them. I was really pleased with it. And I loved Wendell's reaction. If you've seen the video of him cheering the victory at the end, his comment, brilliant. Loved it. Well happy. But they're a better team both teams are better teams ultimately than their position suggests, I think.
I would say it was in doubt, G, just because it's a young team. And as Paul said, it was very close to going to overtime. And then, as we know, anything can happen there where, inexperience, who gets a hot hand, etc., could have came into play. I really enjoyed watching Ivy play a game. I think he looks legit. He looks legit. I think he's probably, for me, the second best rookie in the league after Paolo, who is having a bit of a hard time at the minute. I think teams are focusing on him massively. There was some great performances in the game. Good, like Markel Fultz in the second half. I know G will enjoy that. Fultz had a tremendous second half. Cole came up with some absolutely huge buckets. And I thought Gary Harris in the first half in particular just seemed to make key buckets when we needed it. When it looked as though there might be a run or we needed to get something or a response, Gary Harris seemed to be the one who was there. And I just really, if nothing else as well, the little subplot for me was seeing James Wiseman playing for Detroit, and you had a comparison of him and Jalen Duren, and like Duren looks every bit like a young Dwight Howard, really. Whereas James Wiseman, at the minute, you're looking and going, wow, this guy was number 2 pick in the draft. And he looks as though he's a guy who just looks, his confidence seems to be completely shot, which was a shame to see. And it's comparative to what I know Ball's been getting a bit of the microscope recently, but it's the same type of thing where there's been a lot of games missed and a lot of side issues going on. And then you look at James Wiseman and you go, well, that's how it could be as well. For all the struggles that Ball might be having recently, think about how it is for James Wiseman.
I think one of the things that the game did show as well in Wendell's post-game interview, I think it showed a sign of growing maturity as well from Banchero, in that he told Wendell to follow him in just in case he missed it. He's accepting that, I don't score all the while and I can't do it on my own. I need team members. That shows a really good level of basketball intelligence. Being able to say, I might not get this, so follow me in. But working as a team, I thought it was an interesting insight to the team's mindset of how they will work together.
Fultz went in as well. If Carter hadn't been there, Fultz was there as well.
I was about to say, Fultz would have stuffed that if Wendell wasn't there. And I think it was Coach Jesse Mermis that said, I think Wendell said right at the end, he said just follow it up. And they were both in very good positions, so it's good to see that both could have finished that one right at the death. So,
a couple other players to touch on. Ji playing a few more minutes. He's gradually ramping up. He had certainly an impact on both ends when he was on the floor. It was good to see Franz start to have a bit of a bounce back. He's struggled over the last month, and he had 21 last night. Made those 2 big free throws down the stretch as well. It definitely wasn't. It was definitely in doubt at times. I mean, when they went on that big run, you sat there thinking, I can sit back and enjoy this game now, and then you remember, no, this is the Magic. This never happens. Yeah, it was a bit tense down the stretch. But look, it doesn't matter how they win games now down the stretch. It's about getting those W's. Yeah, we've got 22 to go. I think we're going to need probably 13 or 14 to get into that play-in tournament. So this one was a must-win game, and the next game on Saturday night is also a must-win as well.
One other thing, I was also very pleased to see the team pull out a W in this game because of the nature of it, how close to being, and they found a way to get a win. And that's what the rest of the season is about. For me, it's all about learning as a team the rest of this season. If we get to the play-in tournament, brilliant. It's a nice distraction. But it's all about learning how to win from positions of adversity, perhaps where you're not playing well, where you're making a few mistakes, or in a tight game, being able to find that possession that gets you the win. And some of the defence at the end was superb. Wendell's defence on, was it Bogdanovic that they were trying to get the shot late on? His defence, it was Gary Harris's defence on him. Brilliant, absolutely outstanding work.
Yeah. So looking ahead, so the week ahead, we're recording our next podcast on Thursday, the 2nd of March. Between then and now, the Magic play the Indiana Pacers, as we mentioned, which is Saturday night or Sunday morning in the UK at midnight. Then we travel to New Orleans to face the Pelicans on Monday night or Tuesday morning at 1 a.m. Is that the reason why Cortez, Gary's gone to New Orleans?
Not that I don't know, but if it crossed my mind, I wouldn't be surprised if he rocked up at the game. I hope he does.
I saw he got there today. Anyway, moving on.
Yeah, sorry.
And the last meeting before our next podcast involves a trip to Milwaukee to face the Bucks on Wednesday night or Thursday morning at 1 a.m. We don't know if Giannis is going to play, so fingers crossed that he doesn't. So predictions for the week, gentlemen. So the 3 games. Let's go to Gary first.
I've got it 1 and 2. Unfortunately, I think we'll beat the Pacers, but I think we might struggle against the Pelicans and the Bucks.
Okay.
Sorry,
short and sweet.
Sorry, I'm looking at it, and I just think Indiana's the must-win. The Bucks game's a hard game anyway, and then the Pelicans as well. I think on the road, it's a big ask. So I think the obvious point would be 1 and 2, but if we're going to get one of them, it will be great. But we cannot lose that Indiana game.
Yeah, definitely.
The 6-pointer, if you're not American, you'll know what I mean there.
Mikey?
I'm going 2 and 1. I think we're gonna beat the Pacers, and I think we might just beat the Bucks. We're gonna have to win some of these games if we're gonna make the play-in. So
yeah.
That's the way I'm going to call it. If you haven't listened to, I don't know if it's today's episode or yesterday with Philip, Locked on Magic, he actually broke down the Magic's record against winning teams, and I think it was 12 and 18. And there's only 4 other teams that are in the sort of playoff mix that have got a record like that against the really good teams. Problem is, we've also got a similar record against the bad teams as well, which is why we are where we are. But if it proves anything, we've had 12 wins against some really good teams this year, including 3 over Boston. So we're capable of turning up and playing against these teams, and they shown us this on the broadcast during last night's game about how the Magic's numbers are stacking up defensively over the last stretch of games. That if that continues, we're going to have a chance to win every single night. It's just, they've got to win some of these games if they're going to make it. So, I'm going to say we beat the Pacers and beat the Bucks.
Cool. Paul?
I'm also going 2 and 1. I just fancy us to take a result in New Orleans somehow. Don't ask me why, because on paper, it is, as Gary has said, it's a really, really hard trip. I don't know. There's just something that I fancy as sneaking a result there. It could be a very tight game. And I just fancy sneaking a result. So yeah, 2-1.
2-1. Okay, I'm gonna go exactly the same as one of you because that's what I decided before you said yours. I'm going to say it was Mikey. I think we'll struggle in New Orleans because Jonas Valanciunas always seems to just gobble us up. And obviously they've got Ingram back. McCollum's playing well. Alvarado, a bit of a spark off the bench. I think they'll probably have a little bit too much for us. But I'm hoping for a surprise win in Milwaukee. And then we have to deal with the Pacers tomorrow night. So that is absolutely key. If we've got any ambitions of getting in, we have to win that, and it's got to be seen as like a Game 7 situation tomorrow night. So so I'll go 2-1 to try and be positive.
And importantly, if we beat the Pacers, we leapfrog them in the standings as well. And then you've got your eyes on your Chicago. They're next.
Yeah, and I can't remember who they're playing tonight, but I think they've got a tough game tonight.
I will tell you, they're right in front of me. It is...
I'm just looking.
So Atlanta are at home to Cleveland. Washington are home to the Knicks. Then we've got the Bulls are at home to the Nets.
Okay.
That's your lot. There you go.
Okay, so a couple to keep an eye on tonight.
The Nets are still good defensively. They could do us a favour against Chicago, but Chicago then play Washington, I think, in a few nights' time as well. So,
Pat Bev's debut tonight, isn't it?
It will be, yeah.
Just on a slightly different point on the playing. We keep talking about chasing down Indiana and we're chasing down Chicago and all this. But does anybody think that possibly the Hawks could slide out? No? They're only 4 games in front of us, aren't
they? They're going to bring... They're talking about Snyder coming in as coach, aren't they?
Yeah, 20. Their record is 29-30, and they're in the 8th place. They've played 1 game less than Toronto, and Atlanta have played 1 more game than Washington and are 1 win better, 29-30, as opposed to 28-30.
It'd be handy if they did drop down a place because I think I had them 9th at the start of the season. So Carl Mayhew did his little tweet to us the other day with the update of our standings of how many we got wrong, and I'm holding the wooden spoon as it stands. Yeah, if the Hawks drop, that'll do me a favour.
Long way to go yet, mate.
It is.
There's always somebody drops off towards the back end of the season. There's always somebody who's in a good position that sort of goes on a slide.
Indiana's had a remarkable slide. Indiana's on a slide, aren't they?
Yeah.
Although they played well last night against the Boston Celtics, took it to overtime. It's just a shame it wasn't 5 overtimes. They'd be knackered for Saturday. But there we go. So thank you everybody as always for listening and watching. Please hit the subscribe button to our YouTube channel, Orlando Magic UK. If you fancy some weekend shopping, click on the NBA Store EU or Fanatics links from our links. I know they've dropped some Magic logo t-shirts with Banchero written on the back. So check them out. Don't forget to use our affiliate code MAGICUK10 for 10% off your entire order. Certain exclusions will apply. Follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, all at Orlando Magic UK. So from Gary, Paul, Mikey and myself, until next time, go Magic.